What's going on, wrestling fans? Welcome to the Tapped In Indy Wrestling Podcast. I am Heath Mullican, joined by Nick McDaniel. Nick, a little bit different this week, but excited to be recording with you, my brother.
Yeah, man. Look, you're obviously at some point in this episode you'll kind of find out what's going on, why things are the same yet different.
And I'm going to make a prediction, okay? You should have already become a member at Patreon, patreon.com/tapped-out-pod, a member at YouTube, because by the time you're watching this, there will have been content uploaded for members only. Now, if you subscribe, you get episodes like this early, but we are really trying to up our game on behind the scenes. So become a member on Patreon, go to YouTube, subscribe, hit that bell, ding, 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 get all the notifications. We've also got you covered on the audio stuff, wherever you listen to audio podcasts. Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Hey, I would love to personally know where people are listening. tappedoutpod@gmail.com. Let us know how you're consuming the content. But we have a lot going on. Let's jump right let's get this out of the way. This week's Indy Rewind. Surprise, surprise. Cat is out of the bag. There is no Indy Rewind this week. Nick, tell the fans what's going on.
So obviously, some people know, most people don't. I was on vacation. Notice the past tense. One of the great things we always joke about the podcast is I feel like we're in a time machine half the time because of when we record and things happen, and sometimes we have to work around. So we're recording this prior to me leaving vacation.
Yeah.
By the time you're listening to it, I'll pretty much be back. So, but it's the paths crossed where we couldn't record during. I guess we maybe could have, but I mean, where I'm going to be, I'm am I going to have cell signal everywhere that I'm at?
Right.
So if you want full disclosure, by the time you're listening to this, I would have gone through Cody, Wyoming. Our plan is to go through Cody, Wyoming and Yellowstone and some places like that. So I wasn't sure I was going to have signal. Let's be blunt. I didn't know if I was going to have a signal or not, no matter where I was. So we recorded this. So that's kind of why we're recording this prior to the weekend of the events happening. So we can't really cover. That's why there's no Indy Rewind stuff. But we will go. Look, we promised those promotions. When I'm back and we have all that information, we'll kind of do a double whammy show where we kind of try to talk about a lot of that stuff that happened over the 13th weekend that we missed through this recording.
And we've been talking the last couple of weeks about our mid-year show, and because of the travel schedule, and also because really to do a good mid-year, I wanted to get some of those 13th shows out of the way. I know IWE had a big show. We mentioned a lot of those. But this upcoming weekend, the weekend of July the 19th, is also a huge, huge weekend. But we have lives. We travel. We're both on the road the same week. One for work, one for pleasure.
So is that the epitome of making the drives over the next? Because listen, I will tell you. So, because we're going to ramble a little bit because we got a little bit of extra time here that we don't normally have. So I purchased this app that my wife. So my wife is going to retire in 5 years. We've already began the conversations of road trips, and my job allows me to do that. I can literally take my laptop with me and I can work from anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were discussing. So I bought this new app. We're just trying it out. Lifetime membership, $55. That's a great investment for us, where you can do, and it calculates up as you put points on where you want to stop along the way. It smart routes it, what's the best way to actually drive this, and then it calculates the miles. So obviously we're recording this before we left. I'm at 5,600 miles.
Wow.
For this trip right now. Now, it's probably going to get shaved here and there. We're going to take some stuff off or whatever. But as of today, when we're recording, 5,600 miles. So, wrestlers, catch up with me on your mileage, as far as this drive goes. So, by the way, if our friends at Rocky Mountain Pro happen to catch the show, we're going to be close. literally, like, I'm going to be close. And depending on when we go through there, I'd love to stop in and say hey to them, but not sure that can be done or not. But that would be cool. But that's kind of where I think in the retirement years, by the way, that's where I would like to take the podcast. Is I could go to a show in Denver, Colorado. I could go to see one. I could go see Reality of Wrestling in Texas. That type of thing. I think that's the eventual goal. But I'd love to start building those relationships now over the next few years.
Yeah, and we talked about it on last week's episode. I travel a lot for my work, and if I can go to a wrestling show on Saturday night and do a work visit on a Sunday, I try to do that as much as that's what I did on this trip I'm currently on. Is I hit a wrestling show, but this upcoming week, again, making the drives, the week of July the 19th through the 21st. You have the calendar, and I think we've shared that link with our members so they can physically see how loaded Georgia wrestling is. Because right now it just has Georgia shows on it and some of the surrounding areas. But let's jump right in. July the 19th, Calhoun, Georgia, a new promotion that's had 2 or 3 shows so far. Kevin Ryan's Forever Pro Wrestling. You've got one of the highlight matches here, Joe Black versus Dynamite Kid's son, Tommy Billington. Only one place that you can see that in the country, and that's in Calhoun, Georgia. What are your thoughts on this potential match?
So one thing I want to give all the credit in the world to Kevin Ryan. Because Kevin Ryan, and look, have we noticed this? Is this a new trend where we see more and more wrestlers putting? Now, and I'm not saying it's good or bad or indifferent because it's going to vary. The results are going to vary depending on the talent doing it.
Mm-hmm.
But wrestlers get involved more in their own promotions, putting their money where their mouth is, and not talking about how great they are, what they could do. Actually, going out there and try. They try it.
Mm-hmm.
Literally, they're trying it. So. That I want to commend him first and foremost for putting this match on.
Mm-hmm.
Kudos. That's like he said. He's given you matches, by the way. Like he brought in Jay Lethal, and that kind of stuff as well. So he's bringing in some names, and he's putting on some really good matches. And so unfortunately, obviously, my thing was, I talked to Kevin Ryan about this show, about me wanting to try to make it, and then of course when he gave me the date, I was like. At that moment, I couldn't answer, but clearly at this point, you realize, like, I probably will still be either. That's the day we're hoping to be pulling back into town. But I probably shouldn't say it, but that's kind of literally, hopefully, the day we're pulling him back into town. And that's a hopefully, by the way, considering all those miles I just told you.
Yeah, and I have a big event that weekend, so I'm not going to be able to hit any shows. But Forever Pro Wrestling seems to definitely be trying to carve out a very unique niche in a new place. And so far, Kevin Ryan seems to be hitting all the right notes and doing a really great job. So, again, kudos to that young man.
And bringing in some solid players like Chip Day's on the card, Sauernaro's on the card, Sonny Days is on the card. So that's kind of different. And, I know Kevin Ryan seems to be doing one of two things, and what I give him credit for. He wants to push himself by wrestling a Jay Lethal, or he's going to test a young kid like Teriyaki on this show. Does that make? Yes. I mean, so it's a cool back in a yin and yang for him. Even booking himself.
I didn't even look at this when we were working on the show notes. If anybody is triple shotting Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, I don't know. That'll be interesting to see. So. Anyway, that's the only show we know about. July 19th, Forever Pro Wrestling. July 20th, 7. Was that the final count? 7 shows on Saturday, July 20th. Yeah. So if you're a wrestling fan in Georgia, no excuses. If you are free, hit one of these shows. Let's start in Athens, Georgia. Classic City Wrestling. Classic City, one of the growing promotions. Najicism versus Slim J. Hello. Owen Knight and Sean Legacy, Jazzy Yang, and Nikki Heat. Sign me up if I was available. That's a draw right there. Just those few matches.
Yeah, they look between their Athens, Macon, and then the other venues they're running in between. Like you said, classic cities, they're carving their niche is different. I think that's the cool thing, and maybe I'll say that till the end about the differences with these 7 shows as well. But 7,
like, yeah. Has Najicism, have he and Slim J ever faced off?
It's a good question. They would have to, as much as as long as they've both been. You know what I mean? You would think at some point somewhere, yes, they've had to. Tapthatpod@gmail.com. Naja, Slim J. I know one of you's listening, so I mean, let me know. That's just a curiosity. That is a good question.
But if they did, it would have been. I would say Najicism right now is at the peak. Is the peak of his powers, his prowess, and getting better. So that's a very interesting thing. Classic City. I'm gonna need you to set up a camera. Okay. I'm gonna need somebody to capture this. IWTV. Boom. I'm a member. I subscribe.
Yeah.
There we go. Boom. Thank you very much. You've got Southern Fried, their first match after Shindig. They're in Monroe, Georgia. The Boys in Glows. Everybody always quotes the address. I haven't reached that level yet. CT Keys, his first defense of the Southern Fried Heavyweight title, not getting a night off against Nick Halen. Holy cow.
It kind of puts me in a pickle because both of these guys I'm right there on. CT Keys might be the beast, but Nick Halen could actually be the best wrestler in the state of Georgia. If you don't believe me, ask him. He'll tell you. So that one's going to be – here's the thing, because Nick Halen also, by the way, he's not probably going to come by himself. So I hope CT Keys has got a little help, little backup, because that's just the way he rolls.
Nick Halen could go back-to-back beating the owner of the company at Shindig, could become the champion on this show. Would that make Nick Halen the most powerful man in Southern Fried Championship Wrestling?
Oh, easily. If he takes that top title, hands down, he's the guy at Southern Fried. And by the way, he probably would already tell you he beat David Manders. He is the guy already. He's just he's got to take CT Keys' title from him to solidify
that. Speaking of 2 guys trying to be the guy at Southern Fried, the aforementioned Najicism taking on Xavier Reyes to determine the number 1 contender for that Classics title currently held by Billy Buck healing up after that ladder match. We've also got mixed tag team, the Sextons taking on Grillo and Cat Spencer. That's been building for months. That action's finally going to explode in the ring. And then here's a match that I had circled. This may not be a match everybody has circled. Hunter James with Tristan Michaels taking on Xander Seabolt. 2 young guys. I'd say definitely Hunter James, a lot more accomplished as a wrestler, but Xander Seabolt with a lot to prove in this match.
I think I love Seabolt. Super, great guy. The problem is like him or love him, whatever, or hate him, which is what most of us do, especially at Southern Fried. Hunter James is arguably one of the most gifted athletes, in wrestling in Georgia, right? He's the guy. He's the next big thing. That's his new nickname, the next big thing. I just think it's an uphill battle for Seabolt, but it is pro wrestling, and stranger things have happened. Everybody, there's always Mikey Whipwreck had his upset of a lifetime, right? Mm-hmm. So, I'm just saying it is possible for sure.
Hunter James is somebody we've all got our eyes on, and when we record our mid-year show, he's definitely one I want to talk about. Bullpen Pro in Bowdon, Georgia, they have come out of the gates firing on all cylinders. Two huge shows so far. This one is headlined. Hall of Famer Ron Simmons will be there signing autographs, taking pictures. But Judas versus Alexander Lev in the main event. This is a promotion, doesn't have, to my knowledge, doesn't have championships yet, but they're definitely telling you when we do, here's two guys that are going to be right in the mix for that.
Two NWA talents. I mean, that's both have deals with NWA. But here's the thing: what do we always say? If you're going to put a belt on a guy, I mean, are you going to have a guy have an opportunity to be your champion? I don't know that you get much better than Judas when it comes to especially this area. I mean, I've made that case for NWA, but that's probably going to fall on deaf ears continuously from Mr. Billy Corgan, but it shouldn't. I think that's the guy. I think that's the guy their belt needs to be on. But so to sit there and say Judas probably is going to be in the mix when Bullpen does have their inaugural champion. But don't be stunned when it's Alexander Lev's in the mix as well. He is young, but he's proven. I think how far he's come, and I've brought this up in the past on past episodes, how far Alexander Lev has come from the days he broke into the scene to where he is now is outstanding. It's literally one of the ones that we talk about, like how much a guy's improved. There's a reason, right? Rookie, most improved, all that kind of stuff happens, right? He's just I can't take away anything from him. Whether he's kind of the Hunter James situation, right? Like, look, I may not like him, and I may not personality wise, and all of his faults as that kind of stuff goes in the gimmick. But at the same time, you cannot deny the fact of how much better he's gotten, and how he's risen up the cards everywhere, and he's a player everywhere.
Yes, he has definitely positioned himself in a great way. Also, Bullpen Pro, the Grapplers making their debut there, Luka Daniels, and make sure you check them out if you're in that area. They have been drawing huge crowds, and you never know who's gonna show up at those shows, which that's becoming the case in lots of different places. In your neck of the woods, Disruptor returns to Tannery Row Ale House there in Buford, Georgia. No matches announced yet as of the time of this recording. Sean Legacy, though, making his Disruptor debut. Zicky Dice and many more. You're always going to get to see talents at Disruptor that you're not going to see anywhere else in Georgia. I would say, Disruptor is going to have people that aren't wrestling everywhere else in Georgia, and that's one of the great draws about it. Plus, the great food there at Tannery Road.
It's the building. It's a draw for in itself. Look, we already know, like clearly, like we're going to be split up this weekend, because of the. There's no way with 7 shows that we end up at the same show. Like Myron will end up probably, he'll probably have to go to Southern Fried. I'll probably have to do Disruptor. Yeah, probably just because of the okay, but we'll see. But that's like you said, man. As of today, the poster was literally the event page was set up, and it's Zicky and Sean. Like I said, I don't even think they're wrestling each other. I just think they're on the poster. And look, we'll probably try to do some other stuff. I'll probably do that'll be. We talked about it last week, where we talked about maybe doing some live stuff after the show. Maybe that's one of the first ones that I do, obviously, that I'll be back, and then get Myron to do something at Southern Fried and so forth. So, but yeah, Disruptor, you can't beat the food, man. That's just, it is what it is.
Great place for a first date. Heath, that's another Heath hot take. Turnbuckle is going to be at Stone Mountain, Georgia, but having the usual suspect. Hold on a second, having some technical difficulties here. My ear pods are Turnbuckle returns to Stone Mountain, like I said, the usual suspects. You can see the poster. They're always going to have a loaded card. You're going to see matches that you are not going to see anywhere else. One thing we talked about before is, and one thing I really like about Turnbuckle, is sometimes you're going to see some of their wrestlers maybe in new roles playing different things that you haven't seen them play before, but you're always going to get your money's worth at a turnbuckle show.
Yeah, I mean, you look. Is QT going to be there? Is Billy Gunn going to be there? Satnam Singh, on and on and on. Like Ring of Honor, AEW talents, the infantry. I mean, Bob. Like I said, the list is a mile long. But it's I think this one is and it's it's a brewery. It's another brewery show, I believe. My memory serves me correct. And I'm sorry, I thought I had it in front of me, but I don't. But yeah, so look, it's between Stone Mountain and Jefferson and Athens and Buford and on and on and on, because we'll have a little bit of that conversation next week. They're just everywhere. So if you're wanting like a good family friendly, like entertaining show that's not going to be super long, you can get in, get out. Turnbuckle's your show.
One, and this is a conversation for another day, maybe, and we've talked about this a little bit. 7 shows on that Saturday. Turnbuckle, the least affected talent wise. Like Turnbuckle, because Turnbuckle, they know who they've got. They don't care who else is running. Their talent is their talent.
Mm-hmm. Look, maybe this is where we also say, we talked about this a little bit. One of the busiest weekends we've seen in a long, long time. 9 shows when you do Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We'll get into that in a second. The last couple for Saturday and on Sunday. However, 7 shows alone on Saturday. Not disrespecting anybody, because look, there's connections. People have connections, right? Also, by the way, probably one of the least effective when it comes to commentary, referees. They have a lot of that stuff in house too.
Yes.
And they lock people up, and they're not worried about it. But again, when let's say you're one of these 7 shows, because we're gonna have them all included. If you have 2 referees per show, that is 14 referees needed across the state of Georgia.
Yes.
In one day. We talked a while back about, hey, by the way, that's 14 ring announcers. That's if you have commentary, like a lot of people do post, which is cool. I get that. But referees, let's say you need 14. Everybody knows I'm completely partial. Daryl Hall, Grandpa Booker, is the top referee. Who's the 14th best referee in the state of Georgia?
Yeah.
Like, you got to start fighting. Promotions are fighting for referees. By the way, I know that I saw a post about that on the 27th, and there ain't 7 shows running on the 27th.
Yes.
People looking for referees. So that's the part where I get that they don't care. Most promotions don't care who else runs, and but we talked about that's why Turnbuckle's probably the one who cares the least, because they don't care. They like, hey, if we need referees, we got guys they're in house. We're good. But do some of these other promotions kind of need to like? I'm not saying work together and like be buddies or whatever. But is there a way we can prevent the fact that, like, there was a weekend like with 2 shows all weekend, and then there's 9 a couple weeks later. Like we were staying away from 4th of July. I understood that. But going forward, like, we need to be better than that. Like, we need to figure out a way. Or here's the because there's the cons, right? The con is, hey, we're all fighting to get refs. We're all fighting for talent. We're all fighting for XYZ to keep our show staff. The pro of it, because believe it or not, Nick can actually look at something and be positive about it. There's a lot of guys get an opportunity that day that don't normally get an opportunity that day, because you gotta fill 7 shows, and you gotta fill, because look, the days of double shotting, I think more promotions are less likely to do that. I spoke to a promoter specifically who was like, look, man, we're getting away from that.
Yes.
If their show runs long or traffic's bad or whatever, then it puts us in a bad spot. And, if you're the second show, if you're the first show, you don't care.
Yes.
But if you're the second show, that's a problem. So more people are going to get an opportunity in these scenarios, I think.
That's right. Speaking of which, one show, no disrespect intended, one show there's actually 10 shows this weekend. SCA is Friday night. I mention that because if you are a young wrestler just starting out, when you train, if you're trained properly, you are also trained to ref. If I'm a young wrestler, I'm buying a ref shirt, I'm buying black pants, I'm buying black shoes. And when I see a weekend like this, hey, do you need a ref? It's money, it's opportunity, it's connections. And we've talked about that before. Hey, buy you a nice shirt. But offer basically, if you are a young wrestler, learn how to do everything. Learn how to ring announce. This is a perfect weekend to get out there, broaden yourself, and get yourself definitely some opportunities. Uh, Southern Violence and Wrestling is going to be in Greensboro, Georgia. They're at the Oconee Brewing Company. They are they bring their own brand of wrestling. Um, a lot, you're going to see probably some death match stuff there, but that's a show to check out. No matches announced for that show
Yeah.
yet.
Well, and here's the thing. They also, by the way, this is kind of the last. I don't like their last show. I'm saying it's the last show that I know of before they also move into the Monkey Wrench Brewery in our neighborhood in Swanee. So we'll see what happens. Do they go back there? I'm not really sure what the deal is there, but I know they're coming closer to home in Swanee at Monkey Wrench Brewing starting in August as well.
How far is Greensboro from Swanee?
It's a haul.
All right, got you.
Yeah.
So this is going to be moving to Swanee, which Southern Violence used to be in Athens.
Mm-hmm.
Again, Southern Violence, kind of classic. If I'm not mistaken, Classic City kind of broke off from them. I think that
It's
was
yeah.
Classic City. Um, so that'll be a whole new area for them. So that'll be interesting. Kraken Pro Wrestling returns to Tifton, Georgia, also on July the 20th. No matches announced for there. Hey, make sure you're checking out Kraken. They're putting out their episodes. They're on YouTube. You can also put the links on Facebook. Nope. Yeah.
And here's why I want to point out because look, there's a specific reason why I continue to bang the drum for Kraken. Okay, number one, let's get this part out of the way. I love the people that are involved.
Yes.
I really do. I love the guys that are running that thing. They just, I do. They're good guys. Two, most people like make it. There was a big argument for a long time about, South Georgia's not represented enough. When it comes to wrestling and stuff, which by the way wasn't inaccurate.
Right.
But there wasn't a lot of wrestling there. Because here's the thing. I don't know that. Here's the funny part. IWE, like the Augusta pocket, Savannah pocket, doesn't get lumped in with the South Georgia thing. I don't know why that always falls over into that. What do y'all call it? The Carolina area?
Well, no, I have been chastised and told Augusta is East Georgia. Savannah would be more South Georgia. Augusta is South to me because it's below Atlanta. But in people in Georgia, Augusta is East Georgia to them.
I just meant from the wrestling scene wise, they get lumped in more with the Carolinas than they do with Georgia because of their location. They're over in that corner.
Right.
But so anyway, back to my issue. I got sidebarred there. When we look at all these Athens, Monroe, Bowdon might be the exception, but it's over on the other side. Buford, Stone Mountain, and Greensboro. I don't know if most people are aware. It's a little bit outside of Athens. That's where it's at. It's a little outside of. I've got some clients there. That's just the only reason I know where it's at. And thank God he moved. He moved closer to me. Kraken's kind of your if you're in South Georgia and you're looking for indie wrestling, on this Saturday, there's your show. Go see it. Well, they're all up because we used to hear that for the longest time. Oh, they're all up north of Atlanta. Okay, well you've got one now. Stop complaining about it and go support the one that's local for you if that's what you wanted. It's always funny to me when people scream and bang a drum about hey, we want something closer to home. They open that. It's usually a restaurant, right? Hey, I wish we had a Italian restaurant in town. They open one and you don't ever go, and then it closes. Oh man, we should. Yeah, you should have gone and supported it. You never went, so that's why they closed.
Right.
Don't argue about wanting more promotions in South Georgia. Then somebody comes down there. Oh, and by the way, they're doing some really good, and when I mean good things with their money, they're doing good stuff for the community.
Yes.
Go support them. It's really a reason why you should.
Here's the thing, the challenge for Kraken and other promotions. And I I mean, you and I are in the thick of independent wrestling in this region. We have a calendar. I am continually surprised. Met a young man at the Title Belt Pro show I attended. He did not know. He didn't know there was. I mean, he'd been to a couple of PWX shows. He didn't know there was other independent promotions. People just don't know. Kraken's got to educate. They've got to market to that Tifton area. You can use Facebook ads. You can target people that have liked WWE and AEW, and you can get in front of this audience that they don't even know independent wrestling's a thing. And I firmly believe if you can get a family to an independent wrestling show, a family that watches Raw every Monday night, you get them to an independent wrestling show, and the kid realizes I can go up and I can touch the wrestler's going to shake my hand, give me a high five. They will be
Yeah.
hooked. Even if your wrestling's not Meltzer approved, you create a great experience. You will hook a fan for life. That's the thing. Nobody knows about independent wrestling. And you gotta get out there. You gotta hang up posters. You gotta let people know about it.
Friend of the show, Gary Lamb, says when you feel like you've over promoted,
Yes.
promote some more because there's a ton of people that still didn't hear all of your promotion to begin with.
Yes.
But yes, anyway.
Um, on the flip side of that, a promotion that does a great job promoting and introducing people to independent wrestling, they're going to be running on Sunday, July 21st. This is either their first or second show at Das Barbecue. Action Wrestling coming off SCI weekend, headlined by One Called Manders defending that Action Wrestling heavyweight title against Moses, a debuting wrestler that you and I are like, know nothing about. He looks pretty imposing on the poster. And then we're going to hear about the fallout from the SCI, who won the Futures tournament. There's always someone from SCI that SCI catapults them to being a main player in Action Wrestling. And so I'm curious to see who that is this year.
Yeah, we have a pick. I mean, do we want to make that pick? Because no, actually, because it would have already happened. So I guess for us doing a pick would make no sense at this point. But we would be making a pick from our perspective.
Yeah.
We should make it, and then we would know if we were right or wrong by the time it aired. But yeah, I think we kind of know. We're probably going to be wrong, by the way. Rob Rod's and my prediction levels are about the same when it comes to SCI.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think you are correct. Action seems to be you elevate from the SCI and then you go into Action, and that skyrockets you in the IWTV world to a national audience, and that's how you kind of become a bigger thing, I think, out of that market. So,
and here's the thing: we say this about Action Wrestling a lot. They're starting to mix in more. Like Northside Heroes are going to be on this show. So this is, I think, their first appearance, maybe at Action Wrestling brings in guys. You're not Manders and Moses aren't wrestling anywhere else in Georgia.
nope.
A lot of those folks on the SCI aren't wrestling a lot of other places in Georgia. So whatever your taste in wrestling is, whoever you like in wrestling, this weekend is your weekend. I would challenge a fan to do a triple shot if you could. This is definitely a weekend. If I were not already booked, I would have looked at booking a hotel room and making something happen, and hitting 3 shows on this weekend.
It's easily done for sure. I think this is their first. This is their first Das Barbecue show. Look, we talked a little bit about summer shows, outdoor shows last week, as we travel in the time machine. But do we want to have a conversation about let's save that for next week. I want to have more time about breweries, restaurants, multiple promotions in a venue. There's a topic I want to talk about, but I think it's a longer conversation. So maybe we do that when next week, in next week's episode.
So anyway, this is a little bit shorter episode. We talked about that earlier about why we still got coming up we've still got our kind of our mid-year look at things. We're going to be, and it's not going to be your typical mid-year show where it's like, this is the best wrestler of the year. We're going to, hey, what's the most surprising thing you've seen? What's your favorite match you've seen? We're going to make some predictions for some wrestlers. I would say, I want to talk about, hey, if I'm this guy, this is what I'm looking to do the rest of the year. This is who needs to make some shifts. So I'm super excited to talk about that. But fans, we're excited to continue sharing top quality content with you. Again, if you're already a member, by the time you see this, you've already seen a lot of behind the scenes stuff. If you're a member at Patreon, patreon.com/tapped.pod. You can also join at YouTube. Basically, if you search at Tapped Out Pod, we're everywhere. But if you become a member, you're going to get behind the scenes stuff. You're going to get shows like this early. But we would love to hear from you. What content do you want to see behind that paywall? And yes, we have a paywall. We're not ashamed of it. We provide a service. We provide great content. Um, but again,
We give you 2 free a week. I mean, as it
that's
is
right. That's right.
minimum typically.
Um, but the most comprehensive coverage, I would say, the podcast with the most comprehensive coverage of Georgia wrestling is right here. It's the Tapped In Indie Wrestling Podcast. Nick, hope your trip goes well. I hope you're safe. I hope all those miles are glorious for you. And fans, hey, thanks for listening. Get out and watch some of these shows this weekend. Watch them on IWTV. Buy a ticket, support indie wrestling, or it won't be here anymore. That's the easy thing. Any final thoughts on this week's episode?
No, man, I strongly encourage everybody to go out. Look, hey, there's never a show close to me is always the excuse to go about indie wrestling. Like, massive weekend. By the way, it's one of the last few weekends before school starts back, so get your whole
Yes.
family out there, enjoy. Because the week after that, a lot of people are going to be relaxing and winding down. It's the first week before the kids go back, so go out and enjoy yourself on the 20th, 19th, 21st, all of those. Catch a show because there's obviously one by you at some point
Yes.
this upcoming weekend. And look, I'm hoping to be at one or two of them. Just time will tell when I get back, and we'll see.
We shall see. So thanks for listening, fans, for Mr. Nick McDaniel. This is Heath Mulligan. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. And hopefully we'll see you at the matches.